This is your daily dose of all things royal. Welcome back, my gorgeous, good looking friends. Over the last couple days, it's been awfully quiet. I feel like it's the calm before the storm. As much as we would like for Harry and Meghan to just go away and live their life, we know that that's not possible for these two, and when they are silent, we should be concerned. While the whole world may see Harry and Meghan as failures, remember, they have a full team that surrounds them that have been doing a lot of the political stuff that they so quietly throw out there surrounding the censorship stuff. Let me give you an example. Remember when Harry and Meghan showed up for this mental health day in New York City? Everyone thought that this was like a last minute effort to get some stuff on the books for Archewell, and they showed up and they did a talk. Lo and behold, during the year, it was alluded to that they had been working with parents on social media and the harms of it and produced this impact report, I would say, that was written by Jory Craig from the Institute of Strategic Dialogue. The dastardly duo are still very much in the background with this censorship industrial complex. Earlier this year, they announced that they would be helping with joining some coalition that is going to focus on combating misinformation with AI. And then we had the NAACP Archewell Digital Justice Award that went to a woman who was focused on AI and structural racism. Their focus most definitely is now on AI. We see Christopher Boozy now talking about Catherine and the video that was done with her on the bench, calling it AI. The group is all in right now. And even though we may not be hearing from these two on anything significant, trust me, they are behind the scenes getting themselves involved in an area that I think we all need to be concerned about, because the last people that we want to have any kind of control in is with this AI. Which leads me to talk about this little quadrant today, specifically Tristan Harris from the Center for Humane Technology, Meghan's bestie. Who can recall the conversation that he had here with the racist, Marxist, transhumanist Safiya Noble and these two nitwits? The whole conversation was around deciding how to control the information on social media. He was also the one who I believe created the documentary on Netflix called The Social Dilemma. This is where Meghan stole the line about social media users being similar to drug addicts. Anyhow, he's one of the co-founders of a nonprofit called the Center for Humane Technology, in which their mission is to align technology with humanity's best interests. As they say here, we aim to shift technology towards a more humane future that supports our well-being, democratic functioning, and shared information environment. What we do, we sound the alarm on the catastrophic effects of a broken tech system that profits from people's attention. Our work illuminates the forces fueling a broken system. We pursue strategic solutions through an empowered network. We work closely with a network of partners, experts, senior officials, executives, and other leaders to build shared understanding and take collective action. We provide practical resources for a growing community of change makers through a variety of resources like our podcast, free online course, and toolkits. You notice in this sugary mission statement, you hear all the socialist buzzwords like collective, empowered, community, all the words that Archewell uses, as well as these other social justice impact organizations. So who's funding this organization? Who are their partners? Well, let's take a look. Is anyone surprised seeing major left of center foundations, including George Soros's Open Society Foundations, as well as Pierre Omidyar's Omidyar Network, as well as the Ford Foundation, Craig Newmark, Knight Foundation? A lot of these foundations have ties to the very dark world of the pedophiles. Look it up, Sleazy E. I'm just making an observation, and it doesn't help that the other co-founder, Azza Raskin, who is a co-chairing member of the World Economic Forum's Global Future Council on the future of AI, is in lockstep with transhumanist wacko Yuval Harari. You know this guy. Every time I see this guy, I get this uneasy feeling of just plain evil. It's actually these people who are killing humanity. But they don't see it that way. They see themselves as the one to be telling us what's best for humanity. But getting back to the Center for Humane Technology, under their founding allies, key advisors, and community, look who we have at the bottom line there, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, with an updated link to the Sussex.com website. So that should give an indicator that these two are still involved with this center. Now, I'm not going to take anything away from Tristan and Aza Raskin because they are indeed two very intelligent men, almost too intelligent to a point where it's starting to feel a bit manipulative. Whenever Meghan's bestie, Tristan, speaks, he comes across as non confrontational, having empathy and compassion, and appearing that he's trying to do good in the world. But is he as genuine and authentic as he appears? I don't know. In The Social Dilemma, he talks extensively about how social media uses psychology in order to get people addicted. So it has you wondering, is he using some of that psychology on the public to make it look like he is trying to do the right thing and the good thing here? And the reason why we should care about this guy is because he is constantly in front of Congress lobbying as well as testifying on pushing for tighter regulation around social media, aka censorship. He also is a big advocate for researchers like Renée DiResta to have access to user information in the name of education and analysis. Which brings me to his podcast that he co-hosts with Aza Raskin called Your Undivided Attention, and an episode dated December 21st, 2023 on how will AI affect the 2024 elections with guest speakers Carl Miller and, Renée DiResta. You know, the one that's currently getting sued in this landmark court case, Missouri versus Biden, as well as being a part of the Aspen Institute with Harry and working on that Commission on Information Disorder report. Hopefully, if you've been following this channel for a while, you would know who Renée DiResta is, and anytime you see her, you know it's not a good thing. Renée DiResta by no means is a bastion of free speech, but even worse is this guy Carl Miller. So Tristan's guest, Carl Miller, is a British digital researcher, similar to what Renée DiResta does, but in the UK. He's also an author. He writes for newspapers like The Guardian, The Telegraph. He's a global speaker, and he has worked in the technology industry for over 25 years, according to this bio. He also heads up and has co-founded the Center for the Analysis of Social Media, otherwise known as CHASM, at Demos, which is a UK think tank. But this is the eye-opener. He's a visiting fellow at the Department of War Studies, King's College London, a senior fellow at the Institute for Strategic Dialogue, you know, where Jory Craig resides? Anyhow, he's an associate of the Imperial War Museum, senior research fellow at RAND Europe, a member of the Global Initiative Against Transnational Organized Crime, a member of the advisory board of the Global Network on Extremism and Technology, and a member of the Challenging Pseudoscience Group at the Royal Institution. And as of 2019, this guy serves as an expert advisor on social media for the Care Quality Commission, or the CQC, the external social media expert for the Civil Contingencies Secretariat of the Government of the United Kingdom, and a member of the Independent Digital Ethics Panel for Policing. Yes, policing. He's also an external advisor on the Cross-Governmental Review on the Use of Data Science within the Public Sector, meaning other governments.
If we were to do the maximum positive things that we could do with all of this, like just imagine the comprehensive suite of interventions with the 80-20 rule of what's the 20% of work that we could do that would lead to the 80% sort of benefit, maximum benefit in the face of this, to, again, not just sort of hold up our shields against disinformation, but to design for trustfulness, for designing for synthesis of communication, for bridge rank rather than in personalized engagement, moral outrage rank. Like, what's the full suite, in your view, of solutions that would bring us closer to that, where I think of it, instead of just going on the defense and holding up shields to an infinite tidal wave of new threats, but instead actually asking what's the offensive set of comprehensive assertive measures that we could do, in your view?
Well, I've said my piece around the data. I mean, but that's an absolute given. And I think we can't repeat that enough, really. Just there needs to be access to basic ways of being able to spot when bad things are happening on the information environments that matter. But I think to me, apart from that, the solutions actually lie in asymmetric, non-informational responses. I think we have over-focused on trying to upskill hundreds of millions of people to try and spot this with digital literacy. I don't think we have enough time. I don't think we can reach the people that we need to. And I don't think people could spot it even if they're taught to. And I don't think what they can spot today will be spottable tomorrow. And I also think simply knowing that these operations exist doesn't work, because it's actually when they are confirming your worldview and flattering your idea about the world, that's really when they're working. And that's not when we're on our guard. To me, there needs to be, and this is going to sound strange for a kind of someone that comes from a centre-left think tank and spent 10 years in there, we need more activities from states to levy more costs and risks against the specific professional bad actors doing this. We need to put people on no-fly lists. We need to sanction people. We need to look at criminal laws. We need to degrade assets. We need to make it harder for these campaigns to access Western finance. We should deny them the whole tech stack. We need to deny them app stores. We need to deny them operating systems. We need to deny them search. We need to squeeze off their audiences. And I don't really think that primarily means we need to be maneuvering in the information space alongside them. I actually think we need to grow this whole other portfolio of responses. And some of that's going to be states, sometimes think tanks, sometimes law enforcement agencies. I think it's a whole mixture, but that can basically, over time, just make these operations less effective and less profitable and less easy to do and riskier to do. That's the only way that we can begin to swing the strategic balance in our favor. Because at the moment, what influence operator has had any kind of serious repercussion from doing what they're doing? We worry about this as being one of the most formidable threats to our democracies that we're currently tangling, and yet we have not managed to really levy any serious costs against any of the people that do it. And to me, that is a mad imbalance. We as democracies levy costs against all kinds of people that I think do all kinds of things that aren't as dangerous, I think, as we feel some of these threats are. We've got to change that. So that, to me, is actually exploring a whole series of non-informational responses.
Doesn't he sound oh so lovely? I hope this really wakes people up. These are people that legitimately want to criminalize you and put you or exile you from your own community if you have wrongthink. I mean, what does he mean exactly by degrade assets? Does he mean take away your house, your car? Who does this guy think he is? The mafia? We need to squeeze off their audiences, essentially what they did to Yankee Wally, right? But I think the most troubling thing he said here was that's the only way that we can begin to swing the strategic balance in our favor. Has Fauci been mentoring this guy?
And it's been proven that when you make it difficult for people in their lives, they lose their ideological bullshit and they get vaccinated.
The harm that all these people have caused in controlling or trying to control the narrative as well as the information has hurt so many people. It should concern all of us that they are trying to make this a law in being able to restrict what we see, what we can hear, who we can talk to. Literally, in this podcast, they want access to see what people are saying, because now it's not just disinformation, it's the personal relationships that they want to control. They don't want people of like-mindedness to get together if it's not following the script, the agenda, or ideology. In totalitarian dictator Meghan's case, she would love nothing more than to break up the Megxit community because she deems it a hate group. But the audacity of Renee DiResta and Carl Miller saying that they need access to user information on the social media platforms is a bit too far, considering what they did, meaning this censorship industrial complex of which they made the decision to suppress the Hunter Biden laptop story because they didn't want Americans to know before the election. Oh, and then the Virality Project, where they were censoring people talking about COVID and the vaccines because, God forbid, the pharmaceutical companies lost money on that. We couldn't have any type of hesitancy and we couldn't share with people our experience so others couldn't get hurt. Yeah, it's these people that did that. So why would anybody think it would be a good idea to give people like Renee DiResta access to user data on these social media platforms? Or Jory Craig so she can share it with Meghan Markle? I don't think so. These people have lost all credibility, not only because they've associated themselves with Meghan Markle, but also because of what they were doing to the American public in violating our rights because they think that they know better. They may sound sugary sweet, but you need to listen closely to exactly what they're implying and what they mean. And on that note, I'm going to leave you with this end piece from this podcast. It's really about censorship and oppressing people. They may think in their heads and convince themselves that they're doing something good for the world, but ultimately we know that those that have access to data have power. And that's exactly what Meghan and Harry want. That's what all of these tech companies want. That is to control and have your attention.
I want to wrap up by underlining the precarity of the situation. We are at our most vulnerable, with less protections than we had even in 2020, while AI makes the threats the greatest we've ever had. But it isn't hopeless. There are some really clear steps that we can take right now.
Starting with platforms, Twitter must reopen its research feed to all academic researchers. We need to demand more transparency, as you just heard in this discussion. After Elon came in, he changed the policy so that researchers have to pay $40,000 a month to access the Twitter feed, and they're limited queries, so it's almost impossible to know what's really going on at scale. And Facebook needs to open up its ads API so that all ads are available for public scrutiny to journalists and researchers under the Facebook API, not just for political ads.
We talked to Frances Haugen, the Facebook whistleblower, and she gave a number of recommendations for other things that the platforms could share, like their levels of staffing or sharing their operational metrics. For example, what fraction of attackers are ever taken off, come back again as recidivists? What fraction of influence operations are identified by external versus internal reports? And what fraction of the threat are actually being taken down?
And just like we have media blackouts in some countries before a major election, we could have digital virality blackouts where we don't make things go viral indiscriminately for certain periods that are sensitive and more delicate. And so whatever process we're talking about should be bipartisan oversight, have public transparency, and it should be in the name and good faith effort of reducing this engagement monster that creates basically an unwinnable game.
What is the opposite of engagement? Well, it's sort of latency. It's like putting in a pause so you can't continue engaging. So if we want to hit the engagement companies where it hurts, it has to hit them in engagement.
For platforms that have experimental or uncontrolled features, like during the 2020 election, Facebook promoted live video because those teams were getting incentives for driving more engagement on the platform. But during sensitive periods like elections, where you have features where you don't really know how that live video is going to affect things, platforms could turn down the engagement on those more uncontrolled, untested features that don't have a lot of verification about how they perform in these sensitive environments.
There's an interesting solution direction that comes from the US stock market, which is when you get these flash crashes, when the market just starts losing a whole bunch of its value, there's literally a circuit breaker. They just pull it and it pauses trading for 15 minutes, 30 minutes, the rest of the day. You could imagine something similar in social media where when you get near these sensitive times like elections, you just switch from an engagement-based ranking of your feeds to a chronological feed. You just tone down the engagement.
I was such a fraud.